So Porsche just killed its e-bike division, cube cranks are literally falling apart, and someone spotted an unreleased Santa Cruz in a rival's parking lot. So let's get into it. I'm Joseph Blake, I'm an MTB missionary, and I'm a second guesser of every bike purchase I've ever made. So it looks like Porsche is walking away from e-bikes, and that's gonna put one of the more recognizable drive system names into limbo. So the shift gets real fast. See how the shift? Because bike rumors reporting that Porsche is discontinuing its e-bike performance brand as a part of a broader strategic realignment, and that's going to leave Fazua headed towards a sale as Porsche exits non-core brands. The bigger corporate move here is that Porsche is planning to sell its stakes in Bugatti and the Rimac Group, and once it happens, the e-bike side goes along with it. Now, Fazua is a key name for mountain bike riders and product managers, and Porsche took a small stake in the company back in 22, and then fully acquired it. Now, Grape also sits inside this story through Porsche's long involvement with the Rimac Group. Now, Grape never became a major force in the market, but it did have some interesting connected bike technology before this reset. Now, Porsche says that it's refocusing on its core automotive business, and that means that those side operations are going to get shut down. Now, in total, more than 500 employees are going to be affected across these planned cuts. 360 of those jobs are tied to the e-bike operation. But there's also a practical industry angle here. So Fazua has generally had a solid reputation with riders who want lighter assist systems, but support and update cadence are just as important as ride feel when brands decide what motor platform they're going to spec out. But if ownership changes again, then bike companies will want clarity on long-term software support, bikes, parts supply, and future development before they commit to models around this system. And at this point, there's no new owner named. We're still looking for sale information. What we know is more about the corporate structure around it. Porsche is pulling back to focus on cars, and now these brands need a new home. So even though this story sounds a little bit more like boardroom news, you gotta remember that it can affect future bike launches. So if you're hoping for stronger momentum behind this brand or others, the reset will probably delay that picture even more. Next, moving over to the gear side of things, brake fade can ruin a long descent fast. See, you go faster when the brakes fade. And Galfer thinks that rotor shape can do more to fix that than most riders expect. So they got a new product, here's where it lands. Bike Rumor says that Galfer's Disc Shark Evo MTB rotors use an updated fin design to manage heat better on extended descents while keeping braking more consistent as those temperatures go up, right? So if you're seeing smoke come out the back, you know what's going on. The basic idea is straightforward. They changed the rotor geometry so that heat spreads more evenly across the braking surface, and then it escapes faster once it does build up. So in practical terms, these are built like premium gravity-focused rotors. They use CNC machined 7075 T6 aluminum carriers paired with steel braking tracks that are 2 millimeters thick. And that extra material is going to give the rotor more of that thermal mass, which is going to help it resist the sudden heat spike when you're dragging your brakes through repeated corners or steep sustained sections. They've also added fins and performance across the design, and the company's describing the carrier as topologically optimized, whatever that means. But what you really need to know is that the shape is going to try to balance stiffness and cooling and weight instead of just looking cool in photos, although they do kind of look cool. The connection hardware also gets an attention here. They've used 8mm hollow aluminum rivets with a semi-rigid or a semi-floating interface. That setup is going to be there to transfer the braking force more cleanly while also damping some of that additional vibration. The goal is not just to lower temperature, but to give you kind of a steadier lever feel and less harshness when things do get hot. Installation should stay relatively simple for most mountain bikes already on modern disc setups. They're saying that these rotors work with existing MTB brake calipers and pad types. So there's an integrated e-bike sensor magnet as well. So riders who need that don't have to start improvising and coming up with stuff, zip ties and Velcro straps and super glue. There's also a cosmetic angle here, if that matters to you. I know it matters to me a little bit. The alloy carrier comes in raw, or you can get it in a black anodized finish. There's also a Kashima coated version if you want your rotors to line up with Fox suspension parts. On the sizing side, it's covering most of the aggressive trail and gravity use sizes. Rotors are available in 180, 203, 223 for 6 bolt hubs. Center lock versions are going to come in the summer, and pricing is looking between 85 and 125 euros. Claimed weight is 169 to 225 grams, obviously depending on the size. So they're chasing consistency more than flashy peak power numbers here. So if they do deliver better control deep into a descent, then they'll get some attention from riders who care more about repeatable braking than shaving grams. Next, we got a crank recall that gets serious pretty fast when the failure point sits right at your pedal. So the concern here coming from Pink Bike is a cube recall involving carbon crank arms where the pedal insert can suddenly detach, creating an obvious risk of abrupt loss of control while riding. Now, this isn't a technical service update that's going to affect like shop workflow. If a pedal insert lets go, you're going to be in trouble. I've actually seen that happen. It's tough. You're going to lose support instantly, and it could get real bad real fast, especially if you're descending, but climbing or descending. Now, I don't have the model by model breakdown or the serial number list, so I don't want to overstate the details here. The core issue is clear though. Cube has identified a safety problem tied to its carbon crank arms with the insert design. And the concern centers on unexpected separation at the pedal interface. So if you own recent Cube, EMTB, or any Cube model with carbon cranks that could fall into this group, you're going to want to check right away through the official recall channel or your authorized dealer rather than trying to inspect it casually at home or right before you hit the trail. So when recalls involve contact points like bars, cranks, forks, right? There's not much of a gray area. Your bike could be affected. Stop guessing and go verify. Next, Specialized just made the Turbo Levo pricing look very different in North America. Some of these cuts are big enough to change what tier of bike people are realistically shopping for. So the shift shows up across much of the range. Single Track says that Specialized has permanently lowered Turbo Levo EMTB prices in the US and Canada, including the newest Levo Evo models that arrived in April. And this isn't framed as a short promo or like a seasonal clearance event. This is described as permanent. The biggest reduction hits the higher end model the hardest. The S-Works Levo R drops by more than $4 grand, going from $15,600, which is way out of my price range, down to $11,499, which is still out of my price range, but that's 27%. The Levo 4 Evo Comp also sees a major drop, falling from $9,200 to $6,700, so about the same percentage drop. Several other premium builds are also coming down by meaningful amounts. The S-Works Levo 4 moves from $13,500 to $11,500, and the Levo R Expert goes from $10,800 to basically $9 grand flat. The Levo 4 Evo Pro drops from $12,300 to $10,500, and even the S-Works Levo 4 frame set is getting pulled down from $7,500 to $6 grand. And if you continue moving down the lineup where people like me exist, there are still notable cuts, even if they're less dramatic in the absolute dollar amounts, right? The Levo 4 Pro going from $11,500 to $10,000 even, and the Levo R Comp is dropping from $9,200 down to $8,000. The Levo 4 Expert is going from $9,500 to $8,500. And even the alloy models aren't spared. The Levo 4 is going from $5,800 down to $5,000 flat, while both the Levo 4 Comp Alloy and the Levo R Comp Alloy are going to land at $66.99 after their reductions. Looks like there's only two models that are appearing unchanged in this pricing reset. We've got the Levo 4 Limited, which is going to stay effectively $20,000, and the Levo 4 Comp Carbon, which is going to stay at $8,000. The reasoning behind the move seems pretty direct. Dealer communication tied it to cost savings and competitive pressure in the market, right? People aren't buying as many bikes. Retailers who bought affected bikes between February 1 and May 1 of this year are eligible for credit, and customers who purchased a qualifying Levo between January 1 and May 7 are also set to receive credit towards a new bike purchase. The price shift doesn't extend everywhere. The European Union pricing remains unchanged for now, so this looks like a North American specific adjustment rather than a global repositioning for Turbo Levo, Evo, Stevo. There's no mystery about the competition though, right? Legacy brands are now facing pressure from newer EMTB players that are pushing strong motor systems and aggressive pricing at the same time. When flagship bikes start dropping by thousands of dollars outside of the end of season clearance windows, that's telling brands that they know that shoppers are comparing harder than ever. So for buyers in the US and Canada, this is changing the conversation right away. Bikes that felt out of reach a few months ago are now sitting much closer to mainstream, but still premium pricing. Now, last but not least, sometimes an unreleased bike leaks through patents or teaser campaigns, right? You get a little bit of a flash here, flash there, and sometimes it just shows up in a parking lot. And that appears to be what happened here, because Pinkbike says that an unreleased Santa Cruz Tallboy was spotted sitting in Transition Bike's parking lot before any sort of formal launch details are out in public. And honestly, the location is half the story. The sighting suggests that Santa Cruz has an updated Tallboy out in real-world circulation, even if official specs and timing haven't been announced. Now, that usually means that testing or internal movement has reached the stage where keeping every example hidden starts to get kind of hard. Now, what we don't have are confirmed technical details on geometry changes. We don't have travel numbers. We don't have frame features. We don't have timing, release information. We got nothing. What we know is that it's out there. So this stays where it should for now. There appears to be a new Tallboy out there ahead of launch, and somebody caught it in a place that makes the whole thing more entertaining than your average parking lot. Now, for riders who follow short travel trail bikes closely, even an early public sighting like this tends to get attention fast, because the Tallboy sits in a pretty competitive category where small updates can change how people cross-shop bikes. So we'll need official details before I can say anything bigger than that, but if Santa Cruz wanted to keep this one quiet a little bit longer, that didn't hold up. Now that's gonna do it for me, but before I go, I wanna take a second to explain what this channel is becoming. Now, I am a professional photographer, videographer, and content creator. I've spent years covering the camera and tech industry, but mountain biking has been a huge part of my life, and I believe that it's one of the best things that you can do for your body and for your mind. Getting outside, riding trails with friends, exploring new terrain, there's really nothing else quite like it. So I'm expanding this channel, and going forward, you can expect MTB industry news, gear reviews, trail reports, and more, alongside some of the other stuff that I've done here. And if that sounds like something that you'd want to see, let me know down in the comments. If you know someone who loves riding, share this with them. That's how we grow this thing and spread the word about how good mountain biking really is. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.